Legalized gambling has become a public health crisis to the point where there's actually legislation proposed about limiting online gambling. I'm here to discuss it on this episode of the Scho-Zone. All right, everybody, welcome to the Scho-Zone. I am your host, Ryan Schofield, coming at you live this is going to be a very ironic episode. My little studio I nicknamed the DeGen-Sen. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, comment, share, all that douchebag stuff that podcast hosts like myself say. And we're going to unpack this one right now. I actually planned on doing an episode about a week or so ago, but the way that my schedule works, I don't always have time to record things when I exactly am ready to. Or maybe by the time I'm ready to record them, things have passed by. But I did want to do an episode discussing the different levels of gambling versus what I would call gambling addiction, recreational gambling, gambling for profits, different kinds of categories. And I found the perfect way to kind of incorporate all this where I could actually maybe sound like an expert on something for a change a little bit, although I am going to be reading some work on this. But I saw the other day, as I'm on Twitter, as you can see, following there, the Sco525 on Twitter or X, whatever it's called. I'll be calling it by the wrong name forever. I still call where the Houston Astros play Enron Field, and we all know that they probably shouldn't be calling that, but I'm just kind of wired that way. But back to the topic at hand, we're going to be discussing a piece of legislation that I saw, which I was unaware of until I saw an old school gambling guy on the Twitter space make a reference to, and as he said, the world of online or sports betting could be changing, or, could be a dark day ahead of us. I don't know if it necessarily is, but anyways, I'm going to be discussing something that is referred to as the Safe Bet Act, and I'm going to discuss this, and I'm kind of conflicted on it for a couple different points. I mean, I'm going to do a little bit of talking out of both sides of my mouth on this one. It could just be me, kind of maybe figuring this out in a little bit of a therapy session with myself recording and a couple of people watching. Thank you for those who are watching. Again, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that douchebag stuff that guys like myself say. But let's just kind of go, and I'm going to be reading some stuff here, so I'll be doing the best I can to make this a visually stimulating podcast. I'm just trying to reach as many people as possible. I am live on my Facebook channel. I'm live on my YouTube channel, and I'm also live on Twitter. Not a lot of people watching. Ironically, everyone's probably being a degenerate and watching the Chargers and the Broncos play a Thursday night game, which, by the way, for Thursday night standards, this one isn't even that terrible because it's actually two playoff teams. But let's be real here. There's a reason why they have Thursday night football. And there's a reason why everyone's watching it, and it's probably because they have some action on it. Whether it be fantasy football, whether it be a same-game parlay, there are many reasons why eyeballs are drawn to this game, not because everyone's a Chargers or a Broncos fan, or as I've been arguing, not because everyone's watching good football. It's really, really tough to play good football when you just played a couple days before. But again, conversation for another day. We are here to talk about the Safe Bet Act. So what exactly is the Safe Bet Act, and what is the cause for it? So as I would say, I mean, it's New York State where I live in 2020, I believe was the year. No, 2021 was when, no, was it, or, sorry, excuse me, backtracking on this one. Yeah, 2021, or was it even 2022? Was when, 2022, I believe, was when sports betting became legal in New York State. I know that when the Rams and the Bengals played in the Super Bowl, that was the first year that there was actually legalized wagering for sports betting. That's when it became in New York State, but it was in other states before that, your typical FanDuels and DraftKings when they came around. Now, me personally, I've been betting for a very, very long time. It's not where I'm going with this one. I'll get into my own personal experience, but let's get back on hand here with the Safe Bet Act. So, little backstory here. In May of 2018, the Supreme Court of the United States released an opinion on the Murphy versus National College Athletic Association, which struck down a 1992 federal law that effectively banned commercial sports betting in most states, which in essence, the opinion opened the door to legalizing an estimated $150 billion in illegal wagers on professional and amateur sports that Americans make every year, and helped legalize them. In a world 6 years post-Murphy, as this article says here, Senator Richard Blumenthal and Representative Paul Tonko, both Democrats, which, if you follow the show, I'm not typically on their side with some things, but guess what? I'm willing to separate myself from my political affiliations that I may not even really have for what I think may be good. but I will also uncover some compromising things I have with how I may feel about other aspects of life. They're proposing a new federal law regulation to stop regulate sports betting, which has been categorized as a growing health concern. Thus, the name of this proposed legislation is known as the Supporting Affordability and Fairness with Every Bet Act, or the Safe Bet Act. Again, that's a pretty misleading acronym, I would say, because there is no such thing as a safe bet. There are smart bets, but smart bets don't always win. That could be something that we come up with on here. But Senator Blumenthal has stated that such legislation is needed to stop addiction, save lives, and make sure that young people particularly are protected against this exploitation from gambling companies. Additionally, Representative Tonko has stated that gambling disorders are an addiction and are akin to heroin and opioid and tobacco and alcohol and cocaine use, citing also that every state in this country has dram shop laws that prohibit the sale of alcohol to visibly intoxicated individuals. We need to have that same standard for sports books. Effectively, what this is doing is that there are 38 states where sports wagering has been legalized. It is going to be causing them, it's going to make them have to go through a federal approval process to be able to continue to offer these options. And it's also going to make that so that they have to reapply for this every 3 years with changing standards. Now, slippery slope on this one is that we usually like the idea of the states having their own rights on certain things. And I'm somebody who truly believes usually that more times less government is better. But I do believe, and I do agree with them, that this is a public health crisis. I have seen just how relationships have changed. Again, I'm a lifelong sports fan and also kind of a lifelong bettor. I mean, I liked sports before I liked betting. I've liked betting for a very long time. I'm 39 years old. Probably could say I've been betting regularly or have had a bookie since I was like 16 years old. I've been able to get bets down since I was, that's a whole darker story, I guess. But I've been gambling for quite a while of my life. It's not for everybody. And it probably shouldn't even be for me. Now, through my trials and tribulations, I have found ways to make it a safer bad habit, I guess, as we would call it. I would say that the amount that I do make off doing this, I am ever so slightly ahead this year. And that sounds like such a cliche thing to say, but I could post some slips if I really cared to. But then it's also depressing about how little I am up for how much time that I put into it. But I look at it as it is a hobby. It is a pastime. It does pay me a little bit. Granted, just like how when criminals, we always say with criminals, when they do something, if they were ever to apply the knowledge that they put towards that crime, towards doing something legitimate, they'd probably make a lot more money. I probably could make much better uses of my time. But again, it's kind of a little casual thing that I've kind of come across on there. This is probably ironic hearing this coming from the show. If you follow this, I do actually discuss gambling on this. And I kind of talk about where I'm at on different, bets or different philosophies I have. I would never say that I'm someone that's going to help necessarily make you money as much as I'm going to help you stop losing money in certain cases. Okay. I'm never going to be able to retire from my day job and never start gambling full time. It'd be wonderful. But truth be told, if I ever had the money that it would take for me to do that, I probably wouldn't feel the need to bet as much. So what is exactly in the Safe Bet Act and how do they plan on limiting this? Let me go back to my article here. For starters, advertising. If passed, the Safe Bet Act would prohibit gambling operators from running advertisements between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. and during live sporting events. Thus, this would put an end to the practice of offering customers bonus bets, no sweat bets, and other similar incentives. That right there is huge. It's hilarious to me, and it's not funny at all, actually, that the whole reason that sports was not allowed as legal gambling was because we wanted to make sure we could ensure the integrity of the game. And if I had $1 for every time I heard that Pete Rose is banned from Major League Baseball for betting on sports, but they're going to advertise Major League Baseball games at DraftKings, BetMGM, and all these other various sports books, I would have enough money I would never have to bet. Probably could be retired. And it is, at its surface, it is a valid argument. I'm not going to revisit the Pete Rose thing. You can refer to previous episodes of what I think about Pete Rose and why he should not have been in the Hall of Fame. But I will say, rest in peace, Charlie Hustle. You still were an amazing baseball player. We're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on the Safe Bet Act, which is going to be, again, hilarious me saying that because I never focus on anything I talk about. Just always a free-flowing conversation here. I will tell you, I can see the problems and concerns of, and I fall victim to this myself sometimes, the idea that they will give you a no sweat bet, okay? A no sweat bet, all that is that it's not that they're giving you your money back. if you say, like, for example, I'll have these every now and again where they'll offer me $20 if you bet something at these odds or whatever like that. If you lose, we'll give you a free bet for the amount that you bet. All it is give me a free chance to win my money back. I mean, there's so many places that advertised out there that are risk-free $1,000 bets. Which is the risk-free should never be put on any gambling tag whatsoever. There's always a risk at hand. So with the idea of a risk-free $1,000 bet, which many gambling outlets do offer for a new time customer, they let you make a bet, and if you lose, they give you $1,000 free bet. So basically, you may have had something that you felt good enough to bet $1,000 on. If you lost on it for whatever reason, now you have to find something else that you have to bet $1,000 on, and all that's just to break even. And assuming you found plus money on the vig on there, this might not be a good conversation for someone that's a novice sports betting fan or sports betting partaker. If you don't bet at all, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you are betting anything at minus juice, where the money line, which I'm just even thinking to myself of that, how the whole landscape of betting has changed. I spent most of my life in college as a gambler having to explain to people who wanted to put a bet in why they had to risk $55 if they wanted to win 50. And once I realized I couldn't explain them to you, I would say, hey, I don't think that this is for you if I have to explain this to you. It's pretty elementary stuff. So that is one aspect of it. I mean, the idea that they put these boosts on there, they make people think that they're getting good odds on a bet when it's really, if you're only making a bet because you have a boost, it's no reason to make the bet. Trust me, the odds are never, ever put in your favor, which is going to run into some other things we're going to talk about on the Safe Bet Act. But it's getting people, it's getting people into betting that normally would not be betting, which is not always a good thing. And again, there was plenty of money being bet before this. And again, it was all bet illegally. Now that $150 billion being wagered, it's a little bit of a misleading tag because you're making it think that there's $150 billion being exchanged to illegal outlets. No, there's a lot of money being bet, only so much being exchanged. Again, a good bookmaking operation, what they're trying to do, or a regular old school bookmaking operation, they're just trying to throw a number out there that's going to draw action on both sides. And they're just trying to take a 10% tax on what's out there. That is not happening now. What you are having now is we are trying to incentivize losing, which, I mean, because it's all run by corporations, they're not necessarily trying to make a good shop for the customers. They're trying to take as much money as possible, and they're using some very predatory ways of doing it. Let's go back to this one. So the advertising, I mean, it all started with, I remember back in the day when I used to hang out at CNS Saloon in Brockport, New York, watching football with the 4 screens we had in the back there with my football watching crew. When it was not sports betting, when FanDuel and DraftKings were literally just what they started out as, which was the daily fantasy sports, we had a drinking game we would play for every time that there was one of those commercials. We would take a sip of our beer. Let's just say that if we watched our 1 o'clock, because I'm on the East Coast, if we watched our 1 o'clock football games, we basically were blacked out by the second half of those games because of the number of commercials they've shown. I am watching this game right here. I am trying to mostly focus on recording this podcast. But I guarantee if I was to keep a running count of how many gambling commercials are going to be on throughout this broadcast, or even in some broadcasts where they're actually showing you what the live bet odds are, it is scary because they're, and again, incentivizing action that was not normally there. Way back once upon a time when it was illegal betting, once my bets were in, they were done for the day. That was all I was going to be watching. That was the only bet I was going to have placed. I was just going to sit back and watch the game. As time went on with offshore websites, you started getting some in-game options and some second half type things. But for the most part, my whole gambling career started off with all the action has to be in by this time. And once it's in, it's done for the day. Now it's just constantly being advertised, but this bet is out here, that bet is out there. People who are not actually actively seeking what these options are by, if they, somebody is in their phone at all times looking at odds updates, that's one thing. It's another thing when the screen flashes up, these are what the odds are right now. And, it's really just, it's kind of like a crack dealer giving out free samples, I kind of would almost say. Now, the next phase of this is going to have to deal with the affordability for the Safe Bet Act. Affordability. If the Safe Bet Act would prevent operators from accepting more than 5 deposits from a single customer within a 24-hour period, prohibit operators from accepting credit card deposits, and require gambling companies to conduct affordability checks on customers before they place wagers of more than $1,000 within a 24-hour period. I think this one is huge too, because there's nothing worse in gambling than chasing your losses. And I have this kind of as trying to distinguish, because as somebody who plays a little bit of the stock market and someone who's playing a little bit of the gambling markets, I'm trying to figure out the distinction between being a savvy investor and being a degenerate gambler. Anyone who's been watching this show or has been following me on social media knows I have been took a big position on the stock that is known as Cava, CAVA, which I've had quite a good ride with. I got in earlier this year. It's like finding a team coming back from the pack to win a championship. Bought it in a certain amount on that share. At one point in time, it was over 3 times the original value that it's had. This past month, I have lost 25% of what I was up. Now, does that mean cash out and walk away? No, that's, according to the stock, someone that's in, an investing type, that's not to. This time right now is the time to buy because it's dipping and it's going to rise back up in theory. Hopefully, I feel like that right now by continuing to buy more at lower amounts than I have, it's kind of like chasing a bad loss because I'm getting it at lower because I do continued schedule buys on there where I'm continuously just re-upping. So it looks like it's a better time to do it now because the stock once was at one point. It's like I'm chasing my losses there. If you lost everything at 1 o'clock, buying back in at 4 o'clock, you are now potentially turning a little bit of a problem into a major problem. And some people just think, I can't keep losing. The idea, if I lost $100 bets, okay, well, I'll bet $100 on the next game. If I lost that one, I'll put $200 down on the third game, and then I'll just be back to even. All of this just going on where eventually the well runs dry eventually. The house doesn't run out of money. A better will at some point in time. So you're getting people in some bad spots there. And again, this is a major one right here where normally I like the idea, again, less government involvement. I do believe in states having rights. I happen to live in a state, thank God, that does not allow credit card deposits, or at least some people have told me that there are ways to get that in there. I'm glad I'm not going down that road, but it is a scary idea where if somebody thinks they have a lock winner and they decide, you know what, I feel so good about this, I'm going to take out, use my credit line on my Amex card and put this one in, and then suddenly they lose. Well, they don't have a way of paying that back. Well, now this affordability makes sure that people are getting themselves into where they're not going in over their heads. And then now the third element of this one is the artificial intelligence aspect of this one. If passed, the Safe Bet Act would prohibit the use of AI to track a bettor's individual gambling habits and prevent the use of AI by gambling companies to create so-called micro bets tailored for individual customers. I have seen this in action before. I have friends all around this country. Now, I don't know if I've ever had bets that have been tailored individually to me, but I do know I have seen some things where they'll really prey upon the local team. And one that jumped to my mind was I actually ended up on the winning side of, and I found this kind of through some research in talking to people around the country. In game one of the World Series, as we all know, Juan Soto, who formerly of the New York Yankees, which you can check out my episode on that I recorded before, Juan Soto was tearing it up through the postseason. In game one of the World Series, DraftKings offered to me in New York State, they offered me a boosted bet or a bet to place on him for his prop of over under 1.5 total bases. Now, that is using consumer behavior. Most people always look to bet overs, which I never will understand. I mean, I just look for making the best bets. If over happens to be the best bet, then so be it. But they gave you a way to boosting up the odds on that one. Now, his over on the bets was going to be, or no, I think they only offered it's correct to change that. They only offered you to get over 1.5 as a bet on that. And they gave you plus money. They gave you better odds on it. This was only being offered to New York State bettors because they knew, there's probably a bunch of Yankee fans in there. Juan Soto is their guy or was their guy, and that they would be able to get what they would perceive as better odds on this. Now, me, because I was someone that was kind of looking at a bunch of matchup data, I had seen that he was going against Jack Flaherty, who he did not have good career numbers against. And sure enough, that bet ended up losing. I ended up by actually offering that bet to somebody else. It's a long story, but I ended up winning money by going on the other side of the under on the total basis on that one. But that was kind of a predatory bet. Now, they only offered that particular bet to people in New York State because there was a higher chance they would take it. They manipulated the odds to make it look like it was a good bet for everybody, but it actually was not. And they did not offer the other side of that wager, which meant that they created not a two-way market. So it's one thing where, like right now, we have the one bet that everyone posts. As a fact, as I was watching this game today, there's the anytime touchdown scorer bet. It's one thing if you have somebody saying, will this guy score a touchdown, yes or no? because for every winning side, then there's ability to be on the other side of this one. They just offer these as, will he score a touchdown? And the odds on them are terrible. Justin Herbert was a plus 450 to score a touchdown in this game when Justin Herbert has 2 rushing touchdowns all season. That doesn't really make a lot of sense if you really get into the math of it. Kind of bouncing all around. It's what I do. If you're new to the Scho-Zone, stick with it. If you've watched before, which there's not many people watching right now, but there will be people that can watch on the replay, thank you for being a loyal listener. Again, just tell a friend, we're trying to slowly grow this thing up. Had a bunch of people watching my takes on the Heisman Trophy. Not a lot of people agreed with me, but whether you're agreeing with me or agreeing with me, I've spent more time watching people I disagree with than I actually do agree with sometimes because I like a difference of opinion. Some people were showing their narrow-mindedness, but again, back to the Safe Bet Act. Okay, so we're going to go now here. So we've got the no micro bets on here. So despite Blumenthal and Tonko already meeting opposition within their own political party regarding the Safe Bet Act, they released a statement calling the Safe Bet Act outdated and unwarranted. The pair have been headway with some professional and amateur sports leagues, such as the NFL, NBA, and NCAA. An NFL source said the league is appreciative of legislative interests designed to help protect the integrity of the league and help combat manipulation. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver emphasized his continued support for a federal framework for sports betting during a press conference that coincided with the league's Board of Governors meeting. And the NCAA, a spokesman for the NCAA, stated that the organization welcomes the Safe Bet Act, particularly provision that bans prop bets on individual college athletes and supports national standards that protect competition integrity and educate young people about the dangers of sports betting. This is where things are getting in. People would find themselves into sports betting. It's the young people, because guess what? When do people really start taking off into betting? Again, I had my group of people that I bet with in high school. That group expanded more in college. Why? Because we have a lot of downtime on our hands. We watch a lot of stuff. Don't have a lot of money, trying to make some money, start figuring out ways of doing that. That was with having to actually know a bookie and having the cojones, for lack of a better term, to actually place bets. Not everybody had that in them. Also, people didn't like the idea of the illegal aspect of it. Also, the idea that, with a typical old school bookie, you bet throughout the week, you get paid out at the end of the week. Some people don't trust that they're going to get paid. Some people don't like waiting to have to get paid. I can tell you that it is a little bit of anxiety if you ever do have a lot of money coming from you from one of those non-legal outlets, as I'll call them. I don't want to call them illegal because that might make me sound bad, but you know what they are. When somebody owes you a bunch of money and until you have it in your hands, you don't ever believe you're going to have it. That's not the case now when you can just very easily. I mean, it is scary how easy you can just get signed into a sports book and just start firing away. So much so that it was pretty crazy how to get everybody into doing this. All of the books, when they became legal in New York State, just gave everybody a bunch of free money, which I remember watching this all go down, watching a bunch of people who normally would never bet all of a sudden start betting and think that, oh, this is easy. This is easy. No, it's not. It's not. It's funny they call this a Safe Bet Act. I'll still never forget working with somebody who said, oh, yeah, I'm just mostly making safe bets. And I'm like, if I ever find what's actually a safe bet, I'm probably going to make it unsafe with the amount of money I'm going to bet on it, because there is no such thing as a safe bet. Now, every now and again, you can find ways of, if you're skilled with math, you can find ways to shop different markets and manufacture some money out of thin air. And that's just being savvy, but that's not what everybody does. Or some people still don't have the gall to do that, or the acumen to do that. Something I acquired over time. Call it a blessing, call it a curse. It is what it is. I'm the Scho-Zone here. Wow, did I just refer to myself in the third person name of my show? That is a major douche move. We're going to smack ourselves in the head right here. So that one was interesting here. So, and let's see. Head to the back of 2 major professional sports leagues, as well as support from the largest amateur sports league, Blumenthal, and Representative Hope Katanko. Hope to raise enough support to scale back Murphy's breadth authority in order to combat a national public health crisis. There are some scary facts that I have on here as far as concerning right now. We have it estimated that 4 out of 5 men in their 20s are addicted to gambling. And it is scary because people are betting on things that they otherwise would not be betting on. And it's, again, turning the whole thing of that, the ways that people are betting. I mean, I kind of see this because I used to have my little gambling Twitter circle that was mostly of people that were kind of more hardened to this life. Now you have the people that are calling out that people now, you used to always hear that people thought the games were fixed. Now it's just a constant thing. It's insanity that anytime someone misses a same game parlay because somebody didn't get a catch or there was a questionable penalty, it's that the books are conspiring against them. Where there's smoke, there's water. I don't know. I will say that if you bet long enough, you will see some things that will make you scratch your head. But for every example of that, there's a plenty of games where the things weird shit happens that nothing has any pertaining to do. I compare it to if you've ever played the bar game Quick Draw, or we call it Quick Draw in New York State, Keno, or whatever they call it in other parts, where the 80 number game where people watch their spots. You will always think that the ball is heading towards your numbers. It's something I tell you that because I would watch other people that would play that game have different numbers from mine, and we were both convinced that the ball was heading towards ours. It's amazing the lens that you'll look at certain things through when you have some action in on it. Now, again, the leagues are probably talking out of both sides of their mouth. They want to act like that they have protective of their fans, but the fact of the matter is that people are watching because there is money on the game. What do we got here? Okay, let's go back. So now I got to go back to my bookmarks here. The other thing is that, we have, which is where they're protecting the college athletes. Now, I don't believe that there should be props on college athletics. I live in a state that does not offer them. In fact, you can't even bet on any New York State teams in here. Once you start getting onto those smaller scale things, you do start opening yourself up to the integrity of the game being a little bit more messed up. We even had it in the NBA. Jonte Porter was found fixing and betting on himself. Much, much worse than really what Pete Rose did. Again, not trying to go down that rabbit hole again, but this guy was effectively betting himself unders, betting himself under, playing games and then asking out for injuries. So the bets counted and then cashing in the money, which he was making out for a little time. And now he's facing some serious legal trouble from that. What else do we got here for the Safe Bet Act? Okay, we got some more court filings here. The idea of AI, again, that's getting, AI, where it goes in there, because now these lines are being set by AI. I watched somebody else talk about this. It's not the idea of dual action. It's that the AI actually might be, DraftKings themselves bought their own AI to design their lines, I guess. Now, I will still say that a human being can outsmart AI, but there is even some things with that as far as AI uses algorithms and it bases it all on what the irregular start is. There is a human element that can kind of work into games. I will say that I have some of my best success doing the in-game thing because sometimes I think I'm actually able to outsmart the computer. Now, what happens when you're watching a game at home, you doing this, there is a delay. What happens on your television probably happens about a minute or so before on your phone, which is also one of the most annoying things possible, is that if you are watching with somebody who is constantly following live odds, they are telling you what happens before you actually watch it on television. Now, I had some very good luck this year when I was at baseball games, being able to be where they do not have that advantage over me, where I was able to see things as they were happening and being able to maybe act accordingly on them. And I can tell that I'm good at being able to go ahead of the computer program sometimes, because sometimes it's really hard for me to get bets down at the numbers that I want to. I need to have the ticket loaded, and if I do not get the bet in time, then the numbers already move so much, and by the time I can get my bet in, I don't even like the number that it's on anymore, and I'm off the action. But again, I would say that the idea of a national health crisis, people in their 20s, they do a bunch of dumb shits, okay? We all find dumb ways to do dumb stuff, whether it be ringing up fucking credit card debts, by ringing up bar tabs, which isn't so much of a thing anymore. But the idea that people are now going into debt and chasing their losses and then potentially having to pay creditors, and again, if they're college kids where they're already taking out student loans too high, again, eventually this catches up with the economy. And I think that this actually is it's almost to me kind of in comparison of how we're trying to get regulations on the food industry. Now, again, I'm somebody that likes the idea of less government. I have to figure out exactly where I mean that for, because when it comes to the idea of protecting people from themselves, I think that we should. It's kind of like, and another thing that's going to be part of this act is that they can't offer tutorials where if you don't know how to place a certain bet, we're not going to teach you how to do it. It's kind of like, hey, you have to know what you're doing with this. We're not going to show you how to do it. It's kind of like, I don't know, maybe I'm kind of coming up short of an analogy on this. But I have seen how, again, there are different levels of bettors out there. Now, if you're somebody who on Sunday likes to throw in your $5, $10 parlay or whatever like that, that's never going to hit, or, you like the idea of, I put down $10 and if this wins, I win a couple $100. You're not the person I'm worried about on this one. What I'm worried about is the person who every day gets a whole menu of boosts. And I may be talking about some people that I know here, and this show is watched by people that I know. And if I'm talking about you on here, well, there's quite a few of you that have to figure it out, because I will say that my normal sports betting friends, or my normal sports friends, I should say, who used to not be sports betting friends, have become people that are now I concede to them. I mean, I have a friend of mine who used to occasionally want me to put in a parlay for him, who is now betting fucking table tennis and actually kind of knows what he's talking about with some of these athletes, where it's like, you've never watched table tennis before in your life. But the fact of the matter is that it's on a different part of it's in a different part of the world. So you now have it where if you were an American sports bettor, you basically only had stuff at nights. Okay. Like that was what the traditional shop was going to be taking. Now, once this football game is over with, it used to be the action was done for the day. Now it's, you can fucking go right into betting on something. You have no idea where it is, what it is. And you're just going to bet up because, you got the itch. The Gentleman, as I call it. This is what they're really doing. This is trying to regulate against a drug. Okay. They compared this to opiate use. The Gentleman is a hell of a drug is a quote that I've used many, many times. Now, the Gentleman, I am not saying that I am the first person that's ever come up with that term, but honestly, most times when I discuss it with anybody, I am the only person that has ever used that term. What is the Gentleman? The Gentleman is a term that I coined to my knowledge. Again, I'm not saying there's not somebody else out there. I'm just a regular, I'm really not that regular, I guess I should say. I have plenty of issues, I guess, but I'm some guy that just started saying that, there's a certain feeling that you get when there is, I call it adrenaline that derives from degenerate activities, hence the term Gentleman. And me and my buddies have been using that for a while. There is an actual real drug property at that. Someone who has done certain drugs before, I will tell you that a gambling high is unlike anything else because it's just, and the way I would look at this now too is that gambling is like almost like taking a mind-altering substance, but the logic in it is that, say if you take acid or you take mushrooms or something along those lines, you're always doing it with the intention of having a good trip, as I guess I would say it. And, there are the bad ones on there. With betting, it's like you're taking a drug and you're just hoping to not have a bad trip the entire time. There are gamblers who the second that their team gets down, I mean, I can just tell you from my own experience watching bets that the second that their bet is losing, they are second guessing themselves and doubting themselves. Now, another thing I really wish that they would let go of on these things or on these sports betting apps is the cash out button, because now say you have a parlay and say you have 4 legs of your parlay and 3 of them have already hit and the 4th one's out there. Well, now you have the whole doubt of, if I cash this out right now, I mean, if this hits, it's going to be $300, but they're offering me $150 right now. You are now sitting there. You are not enjoying watching your sporting events. You are sitting there stressing the entire time, where it's like, I like to have fun betting. Now, again, I've had this come up where I do not bet anything that actually really impacts my mood or my fucking financial well-being. I have times where if I feel really strongly about something, I will put down larger amounts of money than others. A lot of the degenerate style bets that I just mentioned, I do myself, okay? I bet $5, $10 in these. For example, this is one of those boosts that they need to get rid of. I lost fucking $10 on it today. I could have lost 25 if I wanted to, but I decided to only lose 10. The bet of, instead of them offering pre-game boosts now on FanDuel, they're offering you the pre-game boost that they're offering to you is, will somebody have a catch on the first drive of the game? Cortland Sutton, I thought maybe had a chance of having 2 catches. He had none, even though plenty of balls being thrown by Bo Nix on the opening drive as I'm watching this. And by the way, it is 14-10 Broncos right now. My 1-6 theory that I've been running had a terrible week last week, still ahead in the year pretty comfortably on that one, but I really, really felt pretty strongly about the Broncos by 1 to 6 points today. But anyways, back to the that's for a different episode. But the idea that, okay, you're going to trying to handicap who's going to catch a ball on the first drive of the game, that's just silliness. They give me an option of betting $25 on a plus money wager at boosted odds or whatever. I like the idea of Cortland Sutton at the odds of getting 2 catches because he gets a lot of targets. I put $10 down on it. But again, there are people that will have the logic out there going, oh, they're giving me this boost and they'll let me do it for $25. I got to put $25 on it. And they're now betting more than they should have on something that they probably would not have ordinarily bet on. I would never bet that bet unless it was offered to me. Now, again, there are certain things I did really, really like the Broncos to win this game just outright today. And I did bet that. I'm not going to discuss the number. I did bet on that one, but let's just say that, I felt confidently enough. And if I lose on it, does not impact my life to a point where I'm going to suddenly be going, oh my God, I really, really got to get that back. It's just part of the game. Maybe justify some of my own behaviors. Who knows? But not sitting here. I'm trying to focus on a podcast, not sitting here sweating, making everybody's life miserable, which is what a lot of gamblers do at this point. And they're all over the place now. And it all stems from these people that, again, now, especially where it's going to get worse now, is that people who were in fantasy football, who are no longer in fantasy football, do you think that they just stop watching football for the rest of the year? No, they just find different ways to get action. But again, this is a major crisis now. Again, I just look at it again. Like there are some people who I've even talked to friends of mine anymore where it's like, can we just talk about sports without there being an angle behind it always involving money in this one, where there's people that they cannot fathom the idea of now watching a game without having some money down on it. I mean, that's the one sport I will say, if it were the NFL, I probably would not be watching. I watch it mostly to have things to talk about with people, but I don't watch games as wholeheartedly as I used to, where I used to actually give a shit about Thursday night games, even if I didn't have a big or large bet on them. But there are now people who are watching anything and everything just for the sake of that they have a bet on it. And it's, it's good for the sports leagues, but it's not good for the fans and the consumers of it. And again, we are getting into a crisis mode with it, I would say, and it's only really getting worse. And we're getting to the point now, again, one of my infamous episodes I have on here, an episode I probably felt the best about, or was the best free-flowing rant I had, was when I discussed David Montgomery, who I can really, illustrate a point with him there. David Montgomery, I did an episode about a couple months ago, which my mic was never turned on. I'm fairly certain I can see the red light on this one, that there will be some audio on this one. And look at the Broncos go. Okay. And he is going to be out of bounds. Marvin Mims Jr. looks like first and goal in the Broncos. Anyways, back to the point at hand. We, forgot what I was doing there. Let me just take a little quick drink of water here. There are people who just can't watch a bet anymore. It's consumed them. And those are how they can target that. They now, the AI that I mentioned, if you're opening up your sports betting app all the time, they know that you're a degenerate, okay? If you're opening it up at 3 o'clock in the morning, they know that you're a degenerate. Just, again, one of the little tips I can advise while I'm just kind of now really off point on here, or not really off points, but just kind of lost my train of thought for a second. If you are someone who bets, I recommend this little tip to you. Start your account with the same balance every day. Don't just park cash in there, because it makes it too easy to put that bet in if you always have money in there. I always say, as soon as you hit something, cash that money out and do something tangible with that money. Don't just cash it out just to be able to redeposit it. That's just kind of a zero-sum game. But it's a scary, dangerous world out there. And the fact that we need to get government involved, I don't think it's the worst idea. Again, I was never somebody, two things that have happened in my lifetime that I was always saying. There was the young teenager in me saying pot should be legal, that gambling should be legal. As I got older into my adult life and realized, okay, they basically are legal as long as you're not an idiot. Now we kind of need to curb this down, because guess what? Everybody's stoned and they're betting all the time. And it's not exactly the world that I ever want it to be. It's like, again, I've cited this a million times on here with the movie Lord of War. There's two tragedies in life. One, not getting what you want, and the other is getting what you want. And I think that more people are biting off more than they can chew with legalized sports betting. Again, just wanted to get someone out there, a little bit of house clearing business. I'm going to be just putting up some things as I can, when I can, just trying to, put some content out there, maybe gain a couple of followers on here. The goal was to get to 500 at the beginning, when I started doing this by the end of the year. We're up over 200. I'll take that. It's, still better than most people would do. I'm not going to be defeated by that one. Just means that we're still going to keep pushing for that 500. I have to be better. Maybe once I'm better, the numbers will be better. But again, a lot of balancing acts in life here. And I'm going to be branching out. I've got some exciting guests I've been working with, but this time of year, a lot of us amateur podcasters, I'm not good enough, or don't really feel worthy enough to have any major guests on this show just yet. But I'm just mostly dealing with other people who are like myself, trying to start something off, trying to make some fun with it. So I'm actually going to be appearing on a podcast tomorrow, the Rainy Day podcast. And the episode is going to be released on the 21st. So if you want to do us a favor and give them a little bit of our love here from the Scho-Zone following, very curious to see what we're going to be talking about. There are a couple guys down in South Florida, love their local sports teams. And they don't, the guy likes to talk what he's seen on my channel. So that's always really flattering. So I just chatted with him briefly before I got on here. So looking to make a little bit of an impact out there. And got some other guys I've been talking with, and it's kind of one of the things. I'm in that middle age. I've been talking with some guys that do a college football podcast. They're older. They are learning some ideas from me. I'm learning some things from them. and just slowly kind of building this thing forward. So everybody, thanks for tuning into the Scho-Zone. Like, subscribe, share, comment, all that douchebag stuff that I say. And I will, if I had a producer, maybe I'd be better prepared. They could give me a little bit more of a rundown here, but being the solo show, doing it live, it's not always easy. If you think you can do better, try it yourself. You probably will be, but if not, go fuck yourself, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Scho-Zone. Yes, I didn't mean to go fuck yourself to anybody that was listening to this. I mean, if you think you can do better, prove it. If not, go fuck yourself. Have a nice night, everybody. And actually, we'll end it with... Broncos touchdown, 21-10. That bet's looking good right now, but it could always be bad. It's all about how it ends. This podcast did not end well. Hopefully the game does.